This video will describe to you three important features of the heart. Number one is the heart chambers. Number two is the heart valves. And number three are the great vessels, the vessels that enter and leave from the heart. So let's take a look at the heart chambers. First, you have to realize that the heart is in anatomical position, so the heart's right is your left and the heart's left is your right. So don't forget that, it's in anatomical position. There are two thin-walled chambers that are at the superior part of the heart, up here and up here. Okay. These thin-walled chambers are called atria, and the one up here is the right atrium, and the one here is the left atrium. Okay, then the ventricles are down here at the apex of the heart. Okay, the apex of the heart. And this one right here is called the right ventricle, and this one here on this side is the left ventricle. We're going to open the heart in just a minute. Open heart surgery, if you would. And we're going to see the inside of what those chambers look like. But from the outside, this is what? The right atrium up here, the left atrium, the right ventricle, and the left ventricle. Now, the thing that I said before, this inferior end of the heart is called the apex, but the superior end of the heart, up here, where the vessels are coming and going, this is called the base of the heart. Usually we think of the base as being at the bottom of something, but with the heart, the base of the heart is at the top. Okay, so let's take this piece out from the top of the heart right here. Okay, and what we'll see then is we can actually see these chambers. This is the right atrium, this is the left atrium, this is the right ventricle over here, and this is the left ventricle over here. Okay, then also, so that's the chambers, four chambers of the heart. The ventricles, in contrast to the atria, are much thicker walled. The myocardium, you can see, is very thick. And that's because ventricles pump blood out of the heart, whereas atria pump blood within the heart. Right now, let's take a look at what the route through the blood will be, and then we'll look at the valves. The route for the blood going through the heart, first it goes into the right atria, then into the right ventricle, then it goes out through the lungs, and then it comes back into the left atria and the left ventricle. So the order, and we're going to say this several times, the order would be right atrium, right ventricle to the lungs, left atrium, left ventricle, and then out of the heart. So the atria pump blood in the heart. The right atria pumps it from the right atrium to the right ventricle, and the left atrium pumps it from the left atrium to the left ventricle. So that's a short distance, so they don't have to be as big and as muscular and generate as much pressure. On the other hand, the left ventricle down here pumps blood out to the lungs, the right ventricle, and then the left ventricle pumps blood out to the body. Okay, now the next thing we want to do is look at the valves. Okay, the valves between the atria and the ventricle are called atrioventricular valves. There's two of them. The one between the right atrium and the right ventricle is called the tricuspid valve because it has three flaps on it. And the one between the left atria and the left ventricle is called the bicuspid valve because it has two flaps on it. This valve is also called the mitral valve because it reminds one of a bishop's hat, of a bishop's mitre. Now, those are the AV valves between the atria and the ventricles. The tricuspid valve on the right, and on the left, the mitral valve or the bicuspid valve. Then there are valves between the ventricles and the major vessels going out. The one going out, and I'll reposition the model in a minute so you can see it better, but the one between the right ventricle and this pulmonary trunk, we're going to talk about the pulmonary trunk in a minute, that valve is called the pulmonary semilunar valve. And then there's a valve between the left ventricle and the aorta, and that's called the aortic semilunar valve. So pulmonary semilunar valve and aortic semilunar valve. Now let me see if I can reposition the model a little bit so you can see this. Okay, right there you see that would be the pulmonary semilunar valve, and then as I position it like this, okay, right here would be the aortic semilunar valve, and here would be the pulmonary semilunar valve. Okay. So those are the four valves of the heart. Let's just basically review them. The tricuspid valve between the what? Between the right atrium and the right ventricle. The bicuspid valve or the mitral valve between the left atrium and the left ventricle. Okay, and then the pulmonary semilunar valve between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk, and then the aortic semilunar valve between the left ventricle and the aorta. So now we come to looking at the great vessels of the heart. Okay, and so what we can see right here from the front, this would be the superior vena cava. The superior vena cava drains blood from the upper part of the body. Okay, then the next one over, this would be the aorta. This is the ascending aorta, the arch of the aorta, and then the descending aorta. And then this is the pulmonary trunk. Okay, so let's make sure we've got those. There's the superior vena cava, drains blood down to the right atrium from the superior part of the body. This is the aorta. It's coming out of the left ventricle. And then this is the pulmonary trunk that is connected to the right ventricle. The aorta is pumping blood to the body, and the pulmonary trunk is pumping blood to the lungs. Now we have to take the heart off the stand again and turn it around this way, and the guy's going to need a mitral valve replacement. Okay, but if you can see this one right over here, that's the inferior vena cava. The superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava both drain blood into the right atrium. Okay, so let's put this back. Let's do the mitral valve replacement. Let's see how hard that is. So, not hard at all. When done by a skilled surgeon. Okay, and So, we've seen the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava, which is down below. Okay, I'll show it again when we're on the back. So this is the superior vena cava. Then this one is the what? The aorta, and this one is the pulmonary trunk. Okay. Now we'll turn the model around so we can see it from the back side. Okay. And what you see is that when the pulmonary trunk gets on the back side, there's a left pulmonary artery, and a right pulmonary artery. The left pulmonary artery is taking blood to the left lung, and the right pulmonary artery is taking blood to the right lung. Then these below are pulmonary veins. Pulmonary veins are going to take the blood back to the left atrium. Now I know that some of this seems reversed of what you think. You think arteries are red and veins are blue, and I'm just telling you the blue ones are the pulmonary arteries and the red ones are the pulmonary veins. Because that color coding, arteries red, veins blue, that's only good for the systemic circulation. But the circulation to the lungs, the pulmonary circulation, the arteries are red and the veins are blue. That's because we got to go back to our definition that an artery is a vessel that carries blood away from the heart, and a vein is a vessel that carries blood back to the heart. So, this is the top one, this is the left pulmonary artery over here, and this is the right pulmonary artery over here. This is the left pulmonary veins over there, and the right pulmonary veins over there. So those are the great vessels of the heart. Superior vena cava, inferior vena cava from below, right down here, aorta, pulmonary trunk. Okay, and then on the back side, right pulmonary artery, left pulmonary, I said it backwards, left pulmonary artery, right pulmonary artery, left pulmonary vein, right pulmonary vein. Okay, so those are the great vessels. Okay, and then the last but not least is called the coronary circulation. If you look at the front of this heart, the piece I took off, you will see that there are arteries and veins there. Although all the blood passes through the heart, none of that blood nourishes or supplies gases to the heart itself. The reason why is because that blood is not broken down into capillaries. This circulation to the heart, which comes off of the aorta, just as it comes out of the left ventricle, this blood supply is called the coronary circulation, and the coronary circulation has coronary arteries, the red ones, because again this is systemic, and coronary veins, the blue ones. So this is called the coronary circulation, and often that coronary system gets blocked or occluded, and that's why people have coronary heart attacks, because of insufficient blood supply to the heart tissue. Okay, so what we've seen in this video, we've seen what? The heart chambers. Let's review them. Right atrium, right ventricle, left atrium, left ventricle. That's the order that blood flows through the heart. Then we've seen the valves, the tricuspid valve on the right, and the bicuspid or mitral valve on the left, the pulmonary semilunar valve between the right ventricle and the pulmonary trunk, and then the aortic semilunar valve between the left ventricle and the aorta. So 4 chambers, 4 different valves, and then last of all the great vessels, the superior vena cava, the inferior vena cava down back here, okay, the aorta, the pulmonary trunk, then on the back side we can see what? The left pulmonary artery, the right pulmonary artery, the left pulmonary veins, and the right pulmonary veins going back to the left atrium of the heart. And then last but not least, don't forget that the blood supply to the heart on the surface is called the coronary circulation. So I hope that helps you to understand the chambers, the valves, and the great vessels of the heart.